Bahrain gave the grid lap times. Melbourne is about to grade the homework. This is not a pace ranking, and it's not a season prediction. This is Week 1 readiness, based mostly on what teams actually did in Bahrain: mileage, long-run execution, and start procedure reps under the 2026 rules. And because fuel loads are unknown, this is about program completion and repeatability, not pretending we know everyone's real pace. The season opens in Melbourne on March 6th to 8th, after Bahrain tests on February 11th to 13th and February 18th to 20th. 3 teams, 3 drivers, ranked by the cleanest Bahrain evidence, not the loudest Bahrain headlines. The readiness rubric. 1. Mileage plus reliability. Did the car stay alive long enough to learn anything? 2. Long-run execution. Did they complete race-style sequences without the run collapsing into constant resets? 3. Start readiness. With the revised start procedure being trialled, who looked closest to consistent? If a team checked all 3 boxes, they move up. If they were fast but didn't get the reps, they drop. Because Melbourne punishes missing reps. Albert Park isn't a normal show-up-and-send-it circuit. It's a temporary track. That means bumpy, and it often starts the weekend slippery before it rubbers in. The circuit also rewards a well-sorted chassis and a front end that responds quickly in direction changes, which is exactly the kind of thing new regulations love to mess up. So, Week 1 readiness isn't just, are you fast? It's, can you find grip while the track evolves? Can you repeat a stint cleanly? And can you avoid turning the start into a lottery ticket? Alright, team rankings. 3. McLaren. McLaren are third because Bahrain looked like a team that covered the work. In the second test, McLaren logged 395 laps, one of the highest totals in the field. That volume matters because it's the cleanest public indicator of readiness: distance, reps, and fewer interruptions. They also backed it up with the most important kind of running for this ranking: race simulation style work. On day 2, McLaren ran one of the headline race sims of the week, the kind of sequence that exposes whether your energy deployment and braking stability stay predictable when the car gets heavy and the tyres start to fade. And when the race compared those race-run samples across the test, McLaren's long-run profile, especially with Piastri, came out looking unusually complete. Again, not proof they're the fastest, proof they can do the job for 50-ish laps without the whole thing turning into a troubleshooting meeting. So why aren't they higher? Because McLaren's Bahrain evidence screams ready, but not weaponized. They didn't lead the mileage chart. They didn't dominate the start procedure conversation. And they had at least one visible disruption: Norris spending a chunk of Friday in the garage while the team worked on his car. That's not catastrophic, but it's enough to keep them third on a readiness list. McLaren's Week 1 identity looks like stable base plus strong long-run execution, which is exactly how you survive Melbourne if Friday is weird. 2. Ferrari. Ferrari are second because they showed 2 Week 1 weapons, and only one of them is the stopwatch. First, yes, Charles Leclerc's 1 minute 31.992 was the fastest lap of the second test. That matters because low fuel performance is still part of readiness. You don't want to arrive at round 1 with a car that can't switch on. But the bigger readiness signal is what Ferrari showed around the phase of the weekend that usually decides Week 1 chaos: starts. Bahrain included trials of a revised start sequence, including a 5-second flashing blue warning light before the usual procedure. And Ferrari's practice starts were flagged by a rival as the standout, including Hamilton's strong launch in a trial start. That matters because if starts are inconsistent under 2026 behaviour, a team that's already closer to repeatable launches can steal track position before the race even becomes race pace. And Ferrari weren't just low fuel merchants. Leclerc also logged 202 laps in the second test. Heavy enough coverage to say Ferrari didn't waste their winter chasing a single Friday headline. On the long-run side, Ferrari also showed up in the published race-run comparisons. In the race's race-run style ranking, Leclerc's race sample was right there near the top group. Not first, but close enough to count as readiness evidence rather than coincidence. So why aren't Ferrari first? Because the overall platform completeness still looks slightly more in progress than Mercedes. Ferrari's team total in the second test was 324 laps, which is solid, but it's not Mercedes' level of coverage. And Hamilton's personal lap count in that second test was 122, which means Ferrari's overall program leaned more heavily on Leclerc's running for its data coverage. Again, not a crisis, but on a readiness list, coverage is coverage. Ferrari's Week 1 identity looks like fast peak plus strong start behaviour plus credible long run, with slightly less total coverage than the top-ranked team. 1. Mercedes. Mercedes top the team readiness board for the most unsexy reason in motorsport. They ran their plan. They logged 432 laps in the second Bahrain test, the highest team total, despite some gremlins, including an on-track stoppage tied to a pneumatic issue. That's exactly the kind of problem a team wants in testing: identifiable, fixable, and not a full weekend stopper. Driver coverage backs it up too. Motorsport's compiled table shows Russell at 235 laps and Antonelli at 197 in the second test. That's massive coverage across both sides of the garage, which matters in Melbourne because you don't want half your weekend spent rediscovering the setup map. Mercedes also didn't look like a team doing chaotic experimental running for the sake of it. Their Bahrain profile reads like a team that had a program, executed it, and collected the kind of data that reduces Friday panic. Now, yes, starts are still a worry, and the revised start procedure is part of that conversation. But the readiness point is this: Mercedes arrive with the most reps banked and the fewest "we don't even know what the car wants" questions left on the table. Mercedes' Week 1 identity looks like most complete platform, even if one specific weakness, starts, can still bite them. Alright, now the drivers. Team readiness is about the platform. Driver readiness is about who completed the hardest Bahrain work cleanly. 3. Max Verstappen. Verstappen is third because the practice-based evidence is strong, but it isn't the strongest. He logged 204 laps in the second test and set a best of 1 minute 33.109, meaning Red Bull did get performance work in alongside program mileage. That's a healthy readiness footprint. More importantly, Verstappen took part in the cleanest public race sim comparison we got, a multi-stint sequence that could be lined up against McLaren's race sim run. Testing rarely gives you fair comparisons. This one did, at least structurally. In the race's extracted race-run sample comparison, Verstappen's run was competitive, but not the best in that specific head-to-head sample. That's why he's third on a practice-based list. Not because he's worse, because the Bahrain receipts point somewhere else. 2. Charles Leclerc. Leclerc is second because he combined peak performance with heavy program coverage. He set the fastest lap of the second test at 1 minute 31.992 seconds and logged 202 laps. That combination matters: performance evidence plus reps. Leclerc also benefits from Ferrari's start work being flagged as unusually strong. In a Week 1 environment where starts are volatile, a driver whose team already looks closer to repeatable launches is simply more ready on Sunday. And in the published long-run comparisons, Leclerc's race-style sample sits right near the top group. Again, not definitive pace, but definitive the run held together and looked credible. Leclerc is second because Bahrain says fast, covered and supported by a team with strong start behaviour. 1. Oscar Piastri. Piastri tops the practice-based driver readiness list because the best single piece of Bahrain evidence we can point to, without fuel guessing, is a race sim head-to-head. Piastri logged 222 laps in the second test. That's elite coverage. Then came the headline. Piastri and Verstappen ran the big race sims on day 2. And in the race's extracted comparison of those runs, Piastri came out ahead in that race sample. That is not he's definitely the fastest driver. It's his long-run execution looked the most complete in the cleanest public comparison we have. That's why he's first on this list. Because Week 1 readiness is about finishing the hard work cleanly, and Bahrain's clearest hard work receipt points to Piastri. What this means for Melbourne. If you watch Australia like a normal person, you'll stare at one leaderboard and declare a dynasty by Saturday lunch. If you're watching for signals instead of headlines, you're watching the boring stuff that actually decides Week 1. Friday. Albert Park starts low grip and evolves fast. The ready teams find a workable window early and can run longer sequences without constant resets. Qualifying. The ready cars look quick without looking fragile. Stable under braking and through direction changes, not snappy and on edge. Sunday. Starts are the Week 1 lever. Ferrari looked sharp in Bahrain launch practice. Mercedes have called starts a hurdle. If that repeats, positions change before turn 1. So the Week 1 storyline is not who is fastest, it's who starts cleanly, who repeats long-run behaviour, who arrives with fewer unanswered questions. Right now, the practice-based readiness board reads Mercedes first among teams, Ferrari second, McLaren third. And among drivers, Piastri, Leclerc, Verstappen. Bahrain gave us the receipts. Melbourne tells us who can cash them.